I get supremely irritated whenever I see those videos like, oh, the men want to be the girls, the men want to be the girls. The men want to go back to the times when it was obvious and overt that men were on top, and women have been deluded. I think because we've grown up in a time where it's normal and expected to see women in the workforce with their own money, able to get their own credit cards, able to make independent choices for themselves. And when women are not able to do so, and women are not well represented in any particular industry, or when women are dealing with sexism, we know how to call that out. Like, any woman of today can look at the lack of women in STEM and be like, okay, like that is a result of sexism, cultural attitudes that push boys into STEM and tell girls that they won't be good at it, and then the hostile how that plays out in the workforce, right? And I think because we are so used to the way we're being treated now, which is still not great, but certainly better than what our grandmothers and our mothers had, that we are under this belief that it's easier to mythologize the past and believe that there was ever a time when patriarchy was beneficial, right? So many people on this app have pointed out that so many girls just want a benevolent patriarchy or benevolent patriarch where they want the traditionalism and the safety. And they've completely forgotten that like women who did not have their own incomes were being beaten, raped, and abused in the house, and there was no social or legal recourse for them to escape. That's why your grandma was with your grandpa. Probably not out of love, but because she had no other option. So when I see women complaining about things like, well, men want to be at the club and they want to be all about them. Yeah, it wasn't until very, very recently, babe, when men were expected to share nightlife with women, where women were patrons and not just like appetizers, hors d'oeuvres, or servers. They want.
You know what the interesting thing about that is that you will never see a club that opens up that caters specifically to women because men are still the patrons. So when you see women like this talk like this, and respect to her, and I always like to give credit to the content creators, when you see women like this talk like this, and she's basically saying that she doesn't like the way that women are complaining that the men want to be like women because men want to essentially be over women, and then she uses the references of times past where women have complained that they had no recourse because of the fact that they had no rights, they had no ability to get a bank account, they had no ability to vote, whatever, so on and so forth. Have y'all noticed that there's never any situation where they highlight the good that came from some of those situations? Basically, only highlighting the bad, right? Because there are great situations and there's always going to be a yin to the yang, and there's never going to just be one story or one historical reference that you can yield to that you can use to make your point. You see what I'm saying? So my point is that if we take what we're experiencing today, right, and then we compare it to years past, but you take the good from then and then you take the good from now, meaning that we all know that women will never ever go back to a place where they don't know how to vote, right, or they can't vote. We all know that we're not going to remove women's rights to be able to have a bank account or to choose for themselves of whether or not they want to have the child. But the overcorrection of it without the acknowledgement of the fact that we were better off economically, financially, so on and so forth, when we were truly under a patriarchy, not a proposed patriarchy, and when we can acknowledge gender roles, and then you take the good from this and you take the good from that, and then you combine it together without trying to demonize one another, then you would actually yield greater results. Because the fact of the matter is this: men being over you is not a bad thing. It's protection, it's provision. It's a situation where you see that women are not suffering exponentially and they're pretending like they're really doing well. This is when you see women say we're the most educated, so on and so forth. But the reality is that they are the most in debt, they are the most foreclosed on, they are raising children by themselves, picking wrong on a regular basis, can't vet effectively. They are raising feminine men on a regular basis, and then they're blaming it on the men that they're raising. And so you see this problem that they're creating for themselves instead of leveraging the privilege that they now have that their grandmothers and great grandmothers didn't have, leveraging that privilege in order to continue to benefit them and them still falling under the covering of a man. Because let's be clear, it is much better to raise children in a two parent household than it is by yourself. But instead of creating this narrative where it's all bad, all bad, all bad, it wasn't a time where women was removed from the right to be able to vote, where they disciplined in their house, all of that. Yeah, of course it was. It's almost like, why wouldn't we identify both sides of it? They didn't have to hunt and gather on their own. They would have absolutely been crushed under hunter gatherer. You know what I'm saying? Where, we had an environment where it wasn't all of these protections for you. We've civilized the world, whether they want to admit it or not, for them to be able to even have this conversation amongst themselves. Otherwise, if we was just still in hunter gatherer or kill or be killed, we would still be in the same situation. So they're speaking out of privilege for something that men created for them, respectfully. It's just the truth. Let's hear some more of what she has to say.
To dance on the balconies of the club because that was expected for them to be doing, because the only way your ass would have been in there 50, 60 years ago is if you were a certain type of woman who would be treated with absolutely no respect because she showed her ankles. I'm exaggerating a little bit for the sake of the video, but genuinely, and I'm not saying this to pick on her because we're mutuals and I think there's a trust there, but Sidoni uploads a video where she's like, I went to a barbecue and all the men wanted a plate first. Fucking obviously. It wasn't until very recently where, and if you come from a very traditional family, you know this, men are expected to eat first, get the best cut of meat, get the best of everything. Women are expected to eat the scraps. So when you go places and men are standing there and they haven't brought anything to the gathering and they're just like with their plate and they're like, me get food first, me get food over you. Yeah, because that's how it's supposed to work in a traditional world.
See, and this is the problem. It's not that you're getting the scraps. It's a level of respect because he's the person that went out and bought the food, killed himself a little bit every day in order to make sure that everybody is provided. Everybody is going to eat. We all eating the same food. You're not getting scraps. It's enough for everybody, but it's a respect factor to say, hey, listen, thank you, I appreciate you, or whatever, because love is an action word. It's not a feeling. You understand what I'm saying? And so again, if y'all want to know why the gender war is raging, it's because of stuff like this. It's because of what she described as an exaggeration in order to make her point. And that you're not getting the scraps. You're getting the respect that comes along with the fact that you've created the house, you built the house, and of course, let's just try to cover most bases, right? They're going to say, well, what if she's a 50-50 partner and all of this? You're missing the point. The point that I'm making is that the same way that you expect to be treated a certain way based off of the fact that you are a woman and there is no equal, there's always going to be gender roles regardless of whether you agree with it or not, is the same way that men are looking for a level of respect that comes along with getting a plate first. Is that such a bad thing?
You should talk to more older women, commune with women who are in their like 70s, 80s, 90s, and ask them truly, what was it like to grow up like that? Because this whole nonsense idea.
And my grandmother and my mother loved being in those spaces. All they ever wanted was a bunch of children. And maybe that's why my family, I never grew up knowing divorce. Maybe that's why my mother is so well taken care of. Maybe that's why my grandmother is so well taken care of. I don't know.
Like men were going to carry your bags and purses. Men would hurt you, first of all, if you made them look feminine like that. Second of all, it's inherently violent. And I should have said this earlier in the video, but it's inherently violent to believe that like women should do all the domestic labor and the child rearing 24/7, 365 days a week in an unpaid position simply because a man is going to work 40 hours a week. I don't care if it's 80 hours a week. That is not the same type of labor. And so when you see men like, on little rowboat dates and the women are doing all of the serious rowing, he's just sitting there like a princess. Yeah, because that's what patriarchy is. It is forcing an entire gender, 50% of the population, into domestic servitude, telling them to shut the fuck up about it and be happy while men sit there like kings. And that is why patriarchy worked for so long, because men knew that they couldn't be kings in the world, but they could come home and they could have dominion over their wives and children, who were expected to cater to them, again, and I'm going to repeat it, like a king. The men of today aren't little spoiled princesses. They want what their grandfathers have. And because of the gender dynamics today, they can't say it so bluntly, but they want to also be catered to and spoiled. And there has never been a time where women got that. And you are delusional if you think that there was ever a time where men were so kind and so chivalrous. Chivalry was the cope that women swallowed to avoid the like psychological reality of the hell that they were living in. That's it. Have a good day. No, actually, one last thing. Part of the reason why trad wife ideology is on the rise is because we, as people who would normally describe ourselves as like completely against trad wife ideology, traditionalism, and find those viewpoints abhorrent, are helping everyone else swallow the poison by insisting that, like, you know, men they just want to be the girls, and there was a time when girls were ever treated well. I cannot emphasize enough. I want you to go back and look at the time when women did not have financial autonomy, sexual autonomy, when women had no cultural power in this world, where everything that you enjoy, the fact that I'm going to work, the fact that I'm going to swipe my credit card to get myself a little lunch, the fact that I own my own car, the fact that my name is on a lease, the fact that I can invest, all of those.
That's called being an adult. That has nothing to do with the dynamics of a relationship. I can't. Listen, I always like to give credit to the content creators. So that link will be down in the description regardless of whether I agree or not. Make sure you tap into the Patreon link is in the description. Teach Henley, 40% off your first order, 20% off for life. Let me know what y'all think inside of the chat, fam.